Simone Biles. Who hasn't heard her name this year? Come on, I'm surprised. She's one of the big winners of this year's Paris Olympics. What's so striking about her success is that she actually achieved this after almost retiring. Back in 2016, in the Rio Olympics, when she was just 19, she won 4 gold medals, 1 bronze, and became the USA gymnast with the most medals ever. People were calling her the greatest of all time. So going into 2020 Tokyo Olympics, she's feeling super confident. And how could she not be? She had 5 tricks named after her, out of which only 1 could be performed by someone else. However, when she goes into practice for the vault skill, she wobbles. She tries again, she wobbles. She tries again, she wobbles. Eventually, she drops out of the skill, tries the next one, and she drops out of the entire competition. It turns out she had developed the twisties. It's an affliction in which you lose your sense of space. So this is a gymnast with no sense of space. And people are being so hard on her. They're telling her she's a quitter, she's a loser. How can she be doing this to her country? And instead of shying away, she actually opens up. And she starts talking about mental health, of her intense feelings of stress and burnout. And she retires for 18 months. She starts therapy, and with the support of her loved ones, eventually her performance starts to improve again. Fast forward 2024, she wins 3 golds, 1 silver, and at 27 becomes the oldest gymnast to win a medal in the past 72 years. So this is one amazing story of success after burnout, and of being open about it. But regretfully, burnout is much more common than it should be. A study in our tech industry from 2022, done to over 32,000 people in 33 countries, shows that 42% of us are at high risk of burnout or already burnt out. And those that are not there yet, 62% of them are already feeling drained, emotionally, physically. And this is not getting better. In 2024, 80% of risk professionals state that burnout is the highest risk organizations are facing this year. And how could it not be, with everything that's going on? We have war, climate change, layoffs, and this is not even factoring in like the anxiety to be on top of everything AI-related, right? And personal circumstances. We can't just separate our personal life from work. It doesn't work that way. They're intrinsically related, even if they don't seem so. For example, one of my team members lost a loved one this year, very unexpectedly, so he was in shock. He took some time off, of course. We were all there to support him. And I was honestly expecting him to take a hit on his performance. He came back, and actually he didn't. I was very surprised. He delivered as usual, great quality, great speed. But eventually I started to notice he was losing his ability to speak clearly, to the point that the team starts reporting to me that they were having a really hard time agreeing with him on certain topics because of the effort they had to invest in interpreting what he was trying to say. And don't get me wrong, his ideas were great. He just couldn't put them into words. The term grief brain exists to describe these cognitive effects on the brain. This ability, that lack of ability of remembering things clearly or thinking clearly, that can affect speech. And studies show that the brain reacts to grief in the same way it reacts to stress. And actually, stress and burnout are both key to the story that I want to share with you today. This is a story of my life earlier this year, of my team's life earlier this year. So in January, we had been a team for almost 2 years by now. We had all joined the company at the same time, so I built this team from scratch. We grew up together within the company. By now, we were a very mature team with great processes, very stable. We had a great track record for delivering on time with great quality, and we had built so much trust with each other as a team and individually. Completely unrelated to my team, on January 10, I go into crisis mode. I found myself in the situation of having to decide, one of my toughest decisions ever, if I was separating or not from my partner. This was a really, really hard time for me. I wanted to invest all my free time and energy into figuring this out, so I stopped traveling, stopped playing video games, stopped reading everything that I loved, because I just wanted to invest everything I had into this and figure it out. So while I'm going through this, which was really tough, on February 2nd, I'm having lunch, and I get a ping on my phone saying, your meeting with the product director starts in 1 minute. And I'm like, what meeting with the product director? This wasn't scheduled before lunch. At that time, usually because of my time zone difference, I'm from Buenos Aires, I have no more meetings. So I'm thinking it's 9 p.m. for him. What could have possibly happened in the 1 hour I'm having lunch, right? So I run upstairs, join the meeting, and behold, the toughest project, most high priority thing we had ever been assigned as a team so far. So this is a story of how we got through this project with our mental health intact. So our time together, I want to walk you through what makes a project tough, the difference between burnout and exhaustion and why we want to avoid burnout, how to close the stress cycle and why this is so important, how to make a plan for survival for yourself and your team, and why kindness is paramount throughout the whole process. And why is this important? Because we're people, led by people. And there's not enough people talking about this. We are people first, and kindness is key to success. So, let's set up the stage of how I was feeling back then. So amazing work, Denise explaining yesterday how RPGs work. So imagine you're playing your favorite game in extreme mode. Extreme means that if you get killed, you lose all of your progress and you have to start over. So you're 150 hours into the game. You are maxed out, level 100, you're feeling OP, overpowered, you have the best armor, the best equipment, you think nothing can kill you. You finally reach the ultimate boss, and it turns out he's 16 times stronger than you thought he would be. And he has 1,000 minions, and one of them lands a curse on you and takes you back to level 1. Level 1 means you can no longer use your level 100 equipment or your level 100 armor. So suddenly you're naked, weak, and fighting with your fists. So you are no longer trying to defeat the boss. You're trying to retreat for your only chance of survival. So that's how I was feeling right now. So what makes a project tough? I like to think something is tough for me, at least, if when I hear about it, my hand starts to shake a little. But a project can be tough for a variety of reasons, and that can actually change from one person to the other. It may be tough because it's really big, or because it's technically complex, or maybe you have really hard deadlines, or you have to collaborate with a lot of different teams, or maybe you have very unclear requirements, or all of them, or some of them, any combination works. So in this case, we were given a project out of the scope of our team, so we did not have domain expertise. It was huge. The combined size of 16 of our regular projects. It was technically complex. We had to collaborate with 8 different teams, and we were given 1 week to get the effort and due date, and we were given only 1 paragraph of requirements. So this is a clear recipe for success. So, to visualize this, this is a learning model inspired by Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset. Maybe something that is tough for someone else is actually in your comfort zone. Maybe you're fantastic at delivering big but simple projects, right? 1 or 2 or 3 of these traits might take you into the learning zone. You're actually excited about it here. But if anything takes you into the panic zone, that's where you start to stress, you start to feel overwhelmed, and you're going to second-guess yourself. And if you're going through something tough, personally, be it a breakup or the loss of a loved one, you will most likely land in the panic zone. If you're going through something tough personally, any project can become a tough project. So, this was my case. I remember thinking clearly, I would have loved this project so much in any other moment of my life. But right now, all I could think was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this right now. And 10 minutes later, I'm not only wondering how am I going to pull this off, how are we, my team, going to pull this off? And I'm very, very aware that this is a project that can burn out a team in a sprint if I'm not really, really careful. And I don't want that. Why? Studies show that burnout is contagious. And furthermore, it has no treatment yet. Burnout is contagious and has no treatment. So our best option here is to prevent it. So how can I do that? I can try to get through this exhausted, but not burnt out. There's a huge difference between burnout and exhaustion. Burnout is both mental and physical. You for sure will have health issues, but it will affect your mood, your overall happiness. You will feel emotionally and physically drained. Exhaustion, on the other hand, is mostly physical. You might be in a bad mood because you're really tired, but if you get a few nights of good sleep, you will most probably recover from it. However, burnout, clinical burnout, can take up to a year to recover from. In my experience, both from being burned out myself or having burnt out team members, it takes 6 to 8 months of being in a safe environment to actually bounce back to your normal levels of energy and motivation. And furthermore, what's really risky about burnout is this is a situation in which you make life-changing decisions. When you're burnt out, you feel you do not want to be here anymore. Something needs to change. And this change, this decision in this moment can be dramatic. This is when you actually change jobs. I have. Or when you change careers sometimes. So I knew I wanted to avoid this for my team. But how can I do it? How can I do it if I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed right now, right? And I'm thinking about this. And I get this ping from a peer saying, Shami, can you free up 30 minutes next week for a chat? And I'm reading this, and a tear starts falling down my face, and I'm thinking, oh, how are you even asking me this right now? I can't deal with this simple question. And I'm fully aware that I'm in a full-fledged crisis, right? Like, this question is stressing me out, so I know what I need to do. I need to close the stress cycle. So when we stress, our bodies go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. This is a physiological reaction to danger. It's amazing. Animals do it, we do it. Adrenaline is rushing through your body, cortisol levels are high. It's great because it's our body's way of telling us that what we are going through is really, really dangerous for us. However, studies show that if you do not close the stress cycle, our bodies might just keep on stressing, like forever. And chronic stress can give you health issues, stomach issues, sleep issues, heart issues, fatigue, drainage, and burnout. And we've already established we do not want that, right? So how do you close the stress cycle?
Hope you're enjoying this video. But did you know LeadDev has lots more to offer?
So webinar, podcasts, I even like articles, conferences, events, and most importantly, community.
And even thinking about like process, tech, and people, which is how LeadDev website is laid out, I really think this is the #1 learning platform for me as an engineering manager.
Don't forget to check out leaddev.com.
Animals literally shake it off. You might have seen your dogs do this like every day. They shake it off completely. What does that mean for us? Do some physical activity. Go for a run. Dance it off. Get physical affection. Punch a pillow. Or my personal favorite, just break down and cry. So that's what I did. I acknowledged my crisis. I took a deep breath in. I got up from my chair, sat down on the floor, and cried out for half an hour. You might wonder why on the floor. Well, it's a bit more dramatic that way, so it actually helps me with the emotion of pushing it out. And if I'm lucky, my dog will actually come and hug me, and that sometimes is all I need. So I close the stress cycle, I can think clearly again, and I know what I need to do. I need to make a plan. And don't get me wrong, this is not the plan for executing the project. That you need to do anyway, it's your job as a leader. This is the plan for how you're going to survive the project. How you're going to survive the planning, the execution, the delivery with your mental health intact. It's the plan for getting through it exhausted, but not burnt out. So what do? You make a plan for yourself, you make a plan with the team, and you make a plan for the team. So let's start with your plan. You clear your schedule, you clear your to-do list, and you get clearance. You need to get sign-off. So my calendar was the single thing that overwhelmed me the most, so it needed to change. I looked at my calendar for the next 2 months and divided everything in must-haves, nice-to-have meetings, or completely optional. I canceled everything that was not a must-have meeting. And very important here, team ceremonies and one-on-ones are must-have meetings, especially if you're going into a tough project. This cleared up 50 to 70% of my time. Next step, you group them into meetings blocks versus focus time blocks. And you want to do this because you want to minimize context switching. Study shows that context switching not only requires effort when you go from task 1 to task 2, but when you're in task 2, you keep thinking about task 1, and it takes up to 23 minutes to regain peak productivity. And when you don't have time, you can't afford this waste of time. So, final advice about the slots, make sure your focus time overlaps your team's time slots, because you will do a lot of sync work with them. Next, you're going to clear up your to-do list. So make a list of anything you or your team that are involved in right now. And then take a hard look at it and start crossing out everything that is not absolutely necessary for you to be handling. If there's anything you think you can delegate, go for it, to another manager, to another team. And when you have the remaining items, you need to reprioritize them from highest priority to lowest, because if things get complicated along the road, you will start dropping things from bottom to top without even thinking. Finally, you're going to get clearance. You need to go to your director or to your manager and share this plan with them. What you're going to drop, what you're delegating, what your priorities were. Have you missed anything? Are your priorities right? Get the support you need to move forward. So remember, when planning for yourself, you clean up your calendar, you clean up your to-do list, and you get clearance. Doing this took me maybe an hour and a half, but the benefit to the reduction of noise in my brain was infinite. Next, you're going to make a plan with the team. So after I gathered as much information as I could that day about this project, I set up a 1-hour meeting with them the following day. I gave them context. I explained why this was a valuable project, why I was excited about it, but also I was very transparent of the hard expectations, the hard deadline, and the risk that I saw to our well-being. And I proposed my vision of success. Let's get through this exhausted, but not burnt out. Do you agree with this goal? They all said yes. So then I proposed that for the remaining of the meeting, we make a plan together for surviving this. And to have the guiding question in mind at all times, what can I do that would make your life or your work easier? So they should be thinking about that all the time while we discuss. Some of the things we debated that day were who wanted to lead this? Who did not want to lead this? Who was going to be in the planning team? Who was going to be in the holding the fourth team? Who finished our current work in progress? And the people on the planning team had to drop everything else they were working on. So who could pick some of it up? For example, the leader was mentoring a junior. So we had to temporarily switch the junior to another senior, at least for the duration of this project. Is there anything we can completely drop? Do you see a pattern in these questions? I'm not telling my team what to do. I'm actually making them part of the decision planning, the decision making. And this is important because this is a tough project. They need to own it. And they need to feel value, and this gives them some sense of control also. So finally, you give context, you explain the goal, and you involve them in the team planning. Very last point for the plan, we make a plan for the team. And for the team means in service of. So this is a high-stakes, time-sensitive endeavor. Jack Welch, CEO of General Electric for over 20 years, states there are two situations in which it's okay to micromanage. When your expertise can aid your team, or when it can make things faster through means of your authority. And that's exactly what I did. I did the work before them, with them, and after them. Before we even started, I sat down and I broke the whole project down into the steps I thought we needed to take to get through this. I was not the technical expert here, but this was still a good enough starting point, because 4 hours of my time and a lot of mental energy saved 4 different people to having to agree, align, and debate on this, so maybe that could have taken a whole day. Of course, I told them, destroy my plan. You are the guys who know everything here, right? But still, we were saving time. And then I made a very detailed schedule of how this was going to play out through the week. So I scheduled 5-hour meetings for us to be together for the planning team every single day. Sync time is super important if you're in a tough project. You need to be very quick in decision-making, brainstorming, and moving forward. Next, I set goals for every one of us that we needed to achieve before we went into the meeting of the day. Maybe some research, maybe some estimations. And in the meeting, we will go through all of that, challenge it, agree on it, and then move forward. And I set a goal for every hour of every meeting of every day of that week. If we were late with any of those goals, we were late with everything. So that helped us keep on track and know we were still making it on time. Once we all agreed with this, I wrote all of this down, detail by detail, into each of their tasks and into Slack as well. And actually, This was the first time ever in my life that I had to micromanage a team. So I needed to be very clear with them that these were exceptional circumstances. You need to tell them why you're going to micromanage them and what you're going to micromanage. In this case, it was just their time schedule and their goals, nothing else. And they were actually grateful. They told me they were grateful that they felt they had a choice while planning, and that I removed the decision-making fatigue from them, that I had cut a straight track to the maze for them to just run through the finish goal. So to sum up, when planning for the team, you break the ground for them, you set daily goals and schedule, and you do a lot of sync work with them. You're one of them. So to wrap up the whole plan, you plan for yourself, with the team, and for the team. And as we approach the end of our time together, I'd like you to think, what's the common thread through all these stages? While I'm in crisis, while I'm closing the stress cycle, while I'm making a plan for myself and for the team. It's kindness. In all of its forms, to yourself and to others. Kindness is a key ingredient to success. Kindness to yourself means self-compassion. Brené Brown, in her book Dare to Lead, which is amazing, by the way, underscores the importance of self-compassion in success. And studies show that people who are recovering from PTSD, that includes self-compassion practices, recover faster and better than those who don't. And other studies on doctors and nurses in the ICU unit show that those who actually practice self-compassion regularly display less signs of burnout, both physical and emotionally, than those who don't. So they are capable at being available for other patients and doctors. But how do we practice self-compassion? Dr. Neff has done some serious research on this. Like, please check her website out. You'll find all the resources to all the research I mentioned in the last slide. So in her website, you'll find meditations, all her research, a theory about it, a test on how to measure it. But basically, it comes down to these 3 steps: mindfulness, common humanity, and kindness. So mindfulness is being aware of how you're feeling in the moment without judging it. You may be suffering, and suffering is part of life, and that's okay. Common humanity means realizing that what's happening to you is happening to someone else somewhere. You're not alone in this experience, and there's nothing particularly wrong with you or what you're going through. And finally, kindness means being kind to yourself, both in your thoughts and in your actions. It's treating yourself with kindness. Treat yourself as you would treat your dearest friend. So, finally, be kind to your team as well. And encourage them to be kind to each other. Because you remember that burnout was contagious. It turns out that kindness and compassion are contagious as well. A study on kindness involving over 8,000 people shows that people who are watching videos depicting acts of kindness donate 25% more to charity than those who were watching control videos. And how contagious is kindness? Another study shows that when you do an act of kindness to a friend, it affects your friend's friend, and your friend's friend's friend. So kindness ripples out to a radius of 3 social steps. So going back to planning with my team knew I was going through a really tough time myself. So when I encouraged them to think of ways on how to help each other and be there for each other, I actually asked them to help me get through this. And again, I mentioned we were a very trusty team. So compassion had kicked in, and we were all looking for ways to help each other out. And this also made us efficient. We were asking ourselves the question, how I can make your life easier? How can I make your life easier? And this mindset stayed with us for the rest of our time together as a team. For this particular project, we could not have gone through it if we did not care for each other. Sometimes, a plan is just not enough. Kindness, in all of its forms, needs to be a part of your plan. So, with our survival plan, we delivered the estimate of the equivalent of 16 projects in 1 week. We became the leading team out of the 8 teams involved. We ended up delivering on the day we said we would. And 2 of my team members got promoted because of their work in this project. And most importantly, no one burnt out. Not even myself, even though I did end up separating in the end. So I learned from all of this so much, and I knew I had to share this also with you. And not because I separated my life from my work, but because I embraced them through kindness. Because I asked myself and my team the question, how can we make our lives better? So today, as we leave this fantastic event, ask yourself, how can I make my life better? How can I make my team's life better? How can I help? Because if kindness is key to success, which it is, and kindness is contagious, which it is, it might just be that success, through kindness, is contagious as well. And that might be the way we make the world a better place. Thank you.